Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross from PTCGRadio, and we are back with round 4 from the Pokémon Trading Card Game National Championships of the UK. This round sees the lovely Rick Cherry and his Seismitoad deck taking on the equally lovely Karl Blake and his Trevenant deck. And as we have in the previous rounds, we will have an interview with both the chaps coming up at the end of this game. So make sure you stick around for that and listen to them talking about their decks and all of that good stuff. I must give you the usual warning here that this was recorded as part of a live stream that went out over the internet. So the audio quality will change slightly between the game and the interview, and you'll hear references to tweeting in and stuff like that, which obviously isn't an option for a YouTube video posted several weeks after the fact. So do make sure that you watch it with that in mind. And of course, as always with this whole YouTube thing, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And although rounds 5 and 6 have unfortunately been lost to the ether, we'll be back with rounds 7 and 8, a top 8 game and the finals for both juniors, seniors and masters very shortly. We are in round 4 of the UK National Championships. We've got two lovely chaps who are both Frio and who have agreed to be on stream. We've got Rick Cherry on the left playing Seismitoad, and we've got Karl Blake on the right playing Trevenant. So, yeah, unfortunately this is the way the format is going. I have avoided it up to now. I have spared you the Seismitoads, but it's happening. So, Karl's going first, but a lot of these Seismitoad decks like going second. I've had a chat with a few people today about this, and a lot of these Seismitoad decks really like going second because, essentially, you can undo everything your opponent's done and then get on the trainer lock. So let's say, for instance, Rick went first and attached a DCE and played a laser, etc. You know, Karl, as the Trevenant player, could potentially switch out of the poison or you know, play an enhanced stamina to get rid of a DCE, whereas going second, Rick can do all of his stuff, he can get rid of all Charles' stuff, all of Karl's stuff, and then immediately go for the trainer lock. So Karl is playing a laser there, he hits the head, and that's pretty good. Seismitoad is asleep. Now, the key for Karl, of course, and the reason why Rick wouldn't want to go second in this particular game, is because we've got the new supporter, Wally, and Wally allows you to evolve a basic into a stage 1 on the very first turn of the game. They don't have to have been down for a turn. That is bad when the stage 1 in question is, in fact, one where if it's active, it blocks trainers. And Rick should be happy right now that Karl started Shaymin and not Phantump. Had Karl started Phantump, he would be able to have just, you just saw him play a computer search there, he could have just gone computer search for a Wally, evolved into Trevenant, and Rick would have essentially been trainer locked for the entire game. Now, it must be pointed out, of course, that Trevenant only blocks trainers when it's in the active, so that means that if you Lysandra around it, if you pull up a bench Pokemon using Lysandra, then you can in fact turn off the trainer lock, but it's quite a bit to ask for. It doesn't always work. So it's not something that you can rely on, because the other thing is, okay, you'll get trainers back, but on the turn you get trainers back, you lose your ability to play a supporter. So Karl is starting off, he's managed to get a Phantump out, and he's managed to play his Wally, which he managed to get the Trevenant using Wally, so he's now evolved that on the very first turn of the game. The key now is going to be that he needs to get the Trevenant into the active, because he doesn't want an active Shaymin, or when he's not able to get it into the active. So Rick here can try and keep that Shaymin in the active. The other thing is, Karl has not managed to get any energy down that previous turn, which is potentially worrisome. Now, we see a head ringer coming down on the Shaymin from Rick, which isn't really going to be the end of the world. Those Shaymins are not really made for attacking. What might be annoying, however, is that Karl may have wanted to play a float stun on the Shaymin to give it free retreat, and that is, of course, now not possible by virtue of the fact that it's got a head ringer on. And I suppose he could play Tool Retriever, but it's unlikely that he will. So we see another Trainer's Mail from Rick there, and he's got some choices. He can grab a Lysandra, which would be the worst possible thing to do, or he can grab a Laser, and there's a couple others there. Laser sounds like a pretty good idea to me. There's also a Crushing Hammer, which would be good if Karl had any energy down, but he doesn't. So Rick's going to be able to poison Karl's active Shaymin here. And the beautiful thing about it is that the maths can work out in Rick's favour. So if Rick's able to get a double colourless and a muscle band here, he'll do 50 damage. The poison will go to 80 at the end of his turn. Then, at the end of Karl's turn, Shaymin will go to 110 damage, which of course is the HP of Shaymin, and will actually die going into Rick's turn, which is, shall we say, very useful. Now, Rick plays a Pokemon Center Lady there, which is very good because it takes off all of the damage. It takes off up to 60, but there was only 30 on there, and removes the poison. No muscle band there, which does mean that the Shaymin is going to die going into Karl's turn, not Rick's. It's only going to have 90 damage coming out of Karl's, and it will be killed in Rick's turn. It's not the end of the world. Now, he plays a Juniper there, having played the DCE on the Trevenant, and that's a risky proposition, because he's not going to be able to get the Shaymin out of the active. He's trainer locked, so there's no switch, no float stone, no escape rope. He's got to get the Shaymin out of the active, and the problem is, the only way he can do that is by manually retreating, which he can't do because he's put the energy on the Trevenant. Now, with the Trevenant being on the bench, that means that the train lock is not active, and Rick is going to get multiple opportunities, one presumes. Oh, and there we go, straight away Xerostic to get rid of the energy. Although actually it wouldn't have mattered because, you know, that could have got rid of the energy on the active Trevenant. So the Shaymin dies, Rick goes up by 1 prize, and the Trevenant comes into the active with no energy on it. Now the train lock is on, so Karl wants to rely on getting a couple more Phantumps down so we can keep the stream of Trevenants going. And we see Lysandra there to the Shaymin just to try and turn that train lock off for a turn. Oh, because he has absolutely nothing. No energy, no supporter, no Phantump. However, Rick now needs to get the Shaymin out of the active, and now Rick is trainer locked, and there's no Lysandring around it when it's the only thing on the field. So there will be no... So he can do this. He can manually retreat, or indeed just use Shaymin's attack. Does 30 damage, and goes back to his hand. The crucial thing, of course, is that doesn't trainer lock Karl. So now Rick has given Karl a turn of trainers. He could have retreated the Shaymin, but that would have discarded a DCE, and although we haven't seen Karl's deck, we can probably fairly assume that Karl's deck is going to be using Xerosic or Team Flagrant or something of that nature. Rick should be expecting to lose a few energy over the course of this game, so the last thing he wants to do is manually discard his own energy. Of course, it might actually be the second to last thing he does. The last thing he wants to do might in fact be to give up the trainer lock for a turn. So Karl here, we know he had nothing last turn. Now he's able to play an Ultra Ball, and presumably he's going to use that to get, I was going to say a Shaymin, but if he's got a Phantump there, he must have some other way of drawing cards. So he's going to empty his hand a bit, and it might be that he had a Shaymin, but of course, Shaymin draws until you've got 6 cards in your hand. So if you've got a whole bunch of cards in hand, it doesn't matter if you've got a Shaymin as well, it ain't going to do anything for you. So he plays an Acrobike there, and he's able to get an energy, which it means he's potentially going to be able to get attacking next turn. Now, Trevenant's attack, for anyone that may have forgotten, allows you to do 60 damage plus 20 to 2 benched Pokemon. And then, obviously, you can do 80 if you put a Muscle Band plus 20 to 2 benched Pokemon. Helps to soften them up. Trevenant kills Seismitoad faster than Seismitoad kills Trevenant. The key here is essentially who gets set up, and at the moment, it's Rick. Both players are out of lasers. Both players are going to be relying on Xerosic and Team Flare Grunt if they play them, rather than Crushing Hammer or Enhanced Hammer. Now, Karl taking the opportunity here to get the Muscle Band down, as the Trainer Lock has been removed for a turn, and Here, it looks like he's going to be able to play a VS Seeker for a Juniper, but that is risky because he's got a DCE in hand. We've already seen one DCE get discarded by Rick Zerasic, so if Karl plays a Juniper, then he's not actually going to be able to attack. And I was going to suggest, yeah, he's not actually played the Juniper. Rick might be playing N. Some of these Seismitoad decks do play N, usually in very small numbers if they do. But what Karl's basically done is he's left the Seismitoad active. Rick can't KO it this turn. It's not possible. Most he can do is 30 damage. Now Karl is able to attach the DCE, and then he can play the Juniper and get going. Now, you'll notice also that Karl didn't bench the Phantom last turn despite using the Ultra Ball. And the reason very simply is, if he plays a Phantom, Rick is able to use Lysandra to drag it into the active and stop Karl trainer locking him. By doing what he did, he gave Rick no opportunity to get the trainer lock last turn until he was essentially forced to bench another Phantom, because he can't go with one Trevenant forever. So again, we've got very high-level players here making very intelligent plays, showing the little things that make them, you know, essentially such good players. Now, he's got the muscle band on there, so there's going to be 80 to the active Seismitoad, 20 to the bench, and essentially it's going to be a free hit KO, unfortunately. However, there is an opportunity to maybe hit the Seismitoad twice while it's in the active, and then there's another Zerasic from Rick discarding another double colourless energy. We are going to see a bit of that throughout the game, I would reckon. And then, you know, what he could do is maybe put 160 on the Seismitoad, then Lysandra up the benched one and kill the active one with the residual 20 damage. That would be an option that's open and available to Karl. So, Karl's got a DCE in hand, but you'll notice there that he's only got, that's his third DCE of the game, so he's going to want a trump card before too long. One of the big, and one of the only real downsides of this Trevenant deck is that you need 2 energy attachments. You need a Psychic and a double colourless in order to actually get going here. So it does leave it open for your opponent to essentially run you out of energy, or at least discard enough energy that you can't get them out fast enough, which is not dissimilar. So we know that Rick has used 2 Zerasic. We also know that he's trainer locked, so there's going to be no VS Seeker here. Now, ideally, at some point, he's going to want to play Lysandra to stop the trainer lock. And we did see a KO there from Rick on the active Trevenant, unfortunately, so that went down for Karl. But hey-ho, these things happen. They've got to go down eventually. The key here is that Karl is still in a fairly good position. He's going to get the KO on the Seismitoad here, using the attack from Shaymin, and then he's going to be able to just put the Trevenant active, at which point Rick is going to be trainer locked again. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that as soon as the Trevenant goes into Karl's hand, it's ready and available for him to use in subsequent turns. Assuming, of course, his hand isn't clogged with useless trainers that he's not able to play because he's under constant trainer lock. So we shall see how this all works out for him. Now, one interesting thing here, of course, is that Karl has played trump card, which has put all the Zerasics back into Rick's deck, which means that Rick is going to have more opportunities to get rid of them. Now, I said Karl needed to play trump card soon because he was running out of DCE, and that was absolutely correct. We'd seen 3 DCEs hit the discard pile. Trevenant really relies on DCE. He's really, really slow when you're trying to attach free energy. So, Karl did the right thing there. Karl absolutely did the right thing by playing that trump card. Yeah, Rick's got his Zerasics back, but Karl's got his DCEs back, and he needs them more. Now, unfortunately here, and Rick's just showing us his lovely hand. Rick likes shiny cards. I think that's fair to say. Lots of secret rares and full arts and all of that. A blinged out deck, if you will, which is not good for the stream, Rick. But hey-ho. Rick here, he's bobbing along nicely. He's got his Seismitoads, he's got a backup Seismitoad. He's got two, he's got a DCE attached to each. He is going to be quaking punching for some time. Unless, of course, Karl is able to hit something like a Xerasic and get rid of the energy. Now, he pops an energy down there. And again, Karl, he doesn't want to play a Phantump yet. Because he doesn't want to play a Phantump where Rick can pull up the Phantump and then start getting rid of Karl's energy. He wants to play a Phantump essentially when he's forced to. He's fine just playing with one Trevenant. The less Trevenant he has out, the less other Pokemon he has out, the less chance there is of Rick Lysandring something up and breaking the trainer lock. And Karl will be doing this very, very deliberately, making sure that there's no opportunity for Rick to break the lock so that Rick can't kind of get an advantage. Because there's nothing to stop Rick breaking the lock for one turn and then playing a Crushing Hammer, playing an Enhanced Hammer, playing a Laser and all of that. Now here, Karl is going to be, you can see there he's got the DCE. And there we go. Oh, he's playing a Wally to evolve it straight away. That's a beautiful play from Karl there. He's avoided, he's done exactly what I suggested in what I said he was going to be doing. He's put the Phantump down when he can use a Wally to evolve it straight away, and that means that, once again, there is no opportunity for Rick to break that trainer lock. He can't play a Lysandra and... Pardon? Yeah. There's no opportunity there for Rick to bring anything up on the bench to break the trainer lock. And that's one of the things that Karl's doing, and this is why, Karl has a long pedigree at Nationals. He's come second twice, he's made top 4 twice, and he's come 5th another time. He's never won Nationals, but he's come pretty darn close, and I think he's cut Worlds before as well. He's a very, very good player, a perennial Worlds competitor. And there comes another Xerasic from Rick, getting rid of that DCE attached to the Trevenant. So... Karl here, he's got another DCE in hand. Karl is managing his hands very well. A lot of times when you play really good players, you wonder how they can possibly always have everything they need. It's because they don't burn through cards unless they need to, and they keep stuff in hand for future turns. Now Karl has given Rick an opportunity to break the lock, but he needs the cards. He needs to draw into some stuff. What he needs now is to start getting... He really needs a basic Psychic on that Trevenant. Because he doesn't really want to be attaching a DCE. He wants to be saving the DCE for if Rick is able to get another Xerasic out. That's what he really needs. He doesn't want to ever have, more than one DCE on the field. Because he wants to be keeping them in his hand for future prosperity. But we see another attack, and that active Seismitoad's on 160. The bent Seismitoad, if I see that correctly, is on 60. So, if Karl's got a Lysandra next turn, things could get very interesting indeed. He could put the Seismitoad, which is now on the bench, which would be in the active, onto 140. And... Oh, no, excuse me, sorry, it'd be on 120, because there's no muscle band on the active. So I think, actually, that Seismitoad... The Seismitoad does appear to be on 160. And we see another Juniper from Rick there, getting rid of a huge pile of trainers. If he's got Lysandra next turn, he's going to be able to pull up the Seismitoad and kill the bench Seismitoad with the what is now the active, what would then be the bench Seismitoad, with residual damage, assuming that is 160, which it appears to be. And that means that he's going to be able to actually finish it out in 2 turns. Next turn, kill the Seismitoad that's now active on the bench. But unfortunately, the Trevenant dies. Trevenant only has 110 HP, which means it only takes 4 hits from a non-muscle banded Seismitoad. So, everything I said about Karl winning in 2 turns was correct if he kept the Seismitoad alive, the Trevenant alive, which he unfortunately wasn't able to do. But he's still in the same position he was. While he's trainer locked, Rick isn't going to be playing any Super Scoop-Ups. Karl still needs 2 turns to win. Now, it's not going to be this turn and the next turn, but it could be next turn and the turn after that. So everything I said applies. We just have to put it back a turn because the Trevenant went down. Karl is in a good position here if, and this is a very big if, he can keep his stream of energy going. Because if he can't keep his stream of energy going, Rick is going to start taking the lead here. The beautiful thing is that Karl is losing 1 prize Pokemon, and Rick is losing 2 prize Pokemon. So we do see a Lysandra come down to get the Shaymin into the active. Now, this goes back to one of my things I've said before about these Seismitoad decks and how few energy they actually play. Now, Karl, he's being cautious here. What he doesn't want to happen is Rick to pull up the Shaymin and then play an Enhanced Hammer. Rick can't use Scoop Up. He can't use Switch. He's got 2 DCE on the field. He's got at least 1 DCE in the discard pile. That means that it is absolutely possible here that Karl is going to be able to buy himself a turn to start attacking. And if he can start attacking, again, that Seismitoad on the bench will go down. Oh, Team Flare Grunt to get rid of the DCE. That is heartbreaking. But that's what these Seismitoad decks need to do. You are never going to win the mirror in Seismitoad if you can't get rid of the other Seismitoad's energy under Trainer Lock. So he needs to do this. He needs to be playing these cards. He needs to play them for the mirror, but they're clearly coming in handy here. This isn't a traditional mirror matchup, but it's not a million miles away. So here we see Karl has got a turn of trainers back. And that is crucial. And it looks like he can get a Juniper from that. Now, whether he wants a Juniper, whether he's got another... He's gone for the Acrobike, so he must have a supporter ready to play. What Karl would really like here is a laser. Rick, while under Trainer Lock, cannot get that Shaymin out of the active but by retreating it manually. Rick's deck slows right down when he's under Trainer Lock, because even though he's still got Shaymin, his hand is clogged for the useless trainer, so Shaymin doesn't draw too many cards. And he can't use Acrobike or anything like that. He can't use VS Seeker to get his supporters back. And there he gets the laser, which is going to be crucial here. If Karl can nick a KO on that on that Shaymin with a laser, then it's only going to take 1 more attack to win the game. So there goes the laser, and he has hit a Tails. There goes another laser. We know he's going to Juniper. Another Tails. Does he bench the Phantump? Of course he benches a Phantump. There's already a Pokemon on the bench which Rick can Lysandra up in order to break the Trainer Lock, so it makes no real difference if he benches a second one. That makes no real odds at this stage. He needs to get another Trevenant next turn, but he needs the energy. So there goes Trainer's Mail in. He's going to be looking for something like an Acrobike, something he can use to draw some more cards, because Rick has successfully gotten rid of so much of his energy that he really is in a position where he could miss the energy drop. And he's not going to win the game with lasers. No, he's probably not going to win the game with lasers, because the problem is he'd have to Lysandra up the Seismitoad and laser it, but then he's going to be on the Trainer Lock when he plays the Lysandra usually, so that's not going to work out very well. The good news is he's managed to get the energy. Is he going to get the DCE next turn? We know he's lost a few, but I think there's more left in his deck, and he's got a Juniper in hand. So he's got a Juniper he can play next turn to dig for that DCE. Now, crucially here is whether Rick can get out of the active. The poison damage is kind of irrelevant at this stage. If Karl's got a DCE, that Shaymin's going down next turn. And actually, Rick needs a DCE here. If Karl's got a DCE, he's got the win next turn, because he will get the double KO on the Shaymin and the Seismitoad. Rick needs to waste a DCE retreating that Shaymin. And he's got the DCE, so he's going to have to play it. It's a complete waste. He's got to play it. The only other thing he could do is attack with the Shaymin, but then he's not breaking the Trainer Lock. The other thing to remember here, of course, is that if Karl's got a DCE and a Lysandra, he wins the game anyway. Lysandra up the Shaymin, do 80 damage to put it on 110 total, knock it out, do 20 residual damage to the bench Seismitoad, boom, 2 KOs, 4 prizes in 1 turn. So he attaches the DCE, and he can either manually retreat it, or he can attack. And he's attacking, and I disagree with this massively. I know wasting a DCE sucks, but at the end of the day, Karl, if he's got a Lysandra DCE, he wins the game here. Oh, he doesn't win the game. Okay, no. Actually, Rick's done something very clever. He's taken the Shaymin off the board so Karl can't KO it. So I suppose, I don't like what Rick did there. It doesn't change that I don't like what he did. But Rick was in basically an impossible situation. Either he gives, and there is the Lysandra, but it's not going to be the win just yet. I don't think, no, not even with a laser. Even with a laser, he's not going to get the KO, although it'll get him pretty darn close. It will get him near us, damn it. It'll get him so close. And another Acrobike for an Acrobike. Oh, and there's an Enhanced Hammer on the active Toad. But we know he's got a DCE in hand because he's got a DCE in hand from the Shaymin. So that's not the end of the world here. We know he's going to get that DCE back. Karl very, very much in the driver's seat here. There goes Trump Card to get everything back in. And it seems almost inevitable at this stage. I mean, a laser would really help to seal it up here. But there is nothing to stop Rick playing a Lysandra to pull something else active. And then going Crushing Hammer, Enhanced Hammer, Super Scoop up on the Seismitoad as soon as he's got something benched, of course. Don't Super Scoop at your own Seismitoad, you'll lose. And, you know, completely turning the game around. We've seen these Seismitoad decks do so. And at the end of the day, Karl has had to put himself in a position by benching the Shaymin where Rick has this available to him. Now, we see a Pokemon Center Lady. That's going to give him another turn of life. Karl, I don't believe, can get the KO next turn, even with a laser. But again, he's living on borrowed time. Now, we know he had the DCE. So that's not a big shock there. And there goes the Shaymin, because of course we knew he had that in hand as well. So the impossible position Rick was in a moment ago was... Oh, he's played 2 Shaymin for 1 card. That's horrible. But it has to be done when you're on the trainer lock. Now, the impossible situation he was basically put in was either I'm giving Karl a turn of trainers back, or I'm giving Karl the win on a Lysandra because I've got 2 Pokemon that can be KO'd in 1 turn. So, on balance, he did do the right thing by attacking with a Shaymin, but it's still... It gave Karl a turn of trainers, and I don't think Rick's coming back from this. Now, by my calculations, I did actually, for the first time, I finally remembered to look at the time this was starting. And unfortunately, we're 25 minutes in. I don't think the loser of this game, which looks overwhelmingly likely to be Rick at this stage, I don't think the loser of this game is really going to have a chance of winning the series. Now, there's every possibility that there's a game where your opponent draws completely dead and you get an early win. But barring something like that, I don't think we're going to have a situation here where Rick's going to be able to win. So, you know, the series if he loses this game. So we really would like from Rick some kind of Lysandra, here are all of my cards play. Which, with 2 Shaymin on the bench, it's going to be much harder to pull off a play like that. Remember, of course, that when you play Lysandra, that's your supporter for the turn. So all your drawing is coming from your Acrobikes, your Shaymins and stuff like that. And there's already 2 Shaymin on the bench. Karl here for his play. He actually can still win with a Lysandra, but he will also need a laser. Shaymin's got 110 HP. Trevenant's attack does 80 with a muscle band. There's a Verbank in play. So Lysandra laser would still get the win for Karl. But he doesn't have the laser or the Lysandra. I don't really think it matters at this stage. It's going to take something big for Rick to get the win here. I mean, Karl's gone so far into the game here that he could almost just finish it off with Shaymin. Now, obviously, Trevenant is a better attacker here. But with the half-dead Seismitoad, Karl could just finish off the game by just doing 30 damage with Shaymin every turn. And just kind of attack in that way. Couple of turns, get the win, and he's going to be all fine. Rick, on the other hand, is on a clock. If he doesn't do something this turn, he's going to lose. Karl is going to get the win next turn. So we need to see some of Karl's energy going, or we need to see a Lysandra, or we need a fresh Seismitoad. Oh, that'll do it. The problem with Az, of course, or AZ, you get to pick up one of your Pokemon, but you have to discard all energy attached to it. All cards attached to it, which means he's lost his DCE here. And yeah, there's a bit of a desperation play here from Rick. He could, I mean, theoretically he can attack with the, I mean, there's no trainer lock this turn, so there's an Acrobike from the Trainer's Mail. Trainer's Mail, like I keep saying on this stream, really getting a lot of traction. A lot of play. So, best case scenario, Karl doesn't hit the laser. And, oh, Acrobike for an Acrobike again. Karl doesn't hit the laser. Rick's got one more turn. He'd have to have a DCE, attach it to the Shaymin, attack with the Shaymin, put the Seismitoad active, but then Karl's going to have another turn of trainers. I don't see how Karl's going to lose this game. I really don't. All he needs is a laser for the win. And he's got a bunch of stuff he can do there. I do like how he started building up a second Trevenant. That is a surefire win for Trevenant to win. Or surefire way for Trevenant to win in pretty much any game. Trevenant is such an efficient... Well, no, it's not an efficient attacker. That's a lie. It takes 2 energy attachments. But it's such a sneaky, powerful attacker. 80 per turn and 20 to 2 bench Pokemon. That... Combine that with Trainer Lock, it's a better deck than Seismitoad when you can get attacking properly, because you're just doing so much more damage. So, obviously Seismitoad has got more tricks a lot of the time, but the difference between, 50 in laser and 80 in laser really is big. You can one-hit KO Shaymin in 1 turn, assuming you've got the laser. So, there's a computer search, so he can go and get the laser, and that is game 1 to Karl. So Karl takes a 1-game lead here, in a game which took something like half an hour of their allotted 50 minutes. That means that we are probably, given the decks we're seeing here, we're probably going to see a situation where Karl just lets the game run out, it goes to time, and we see a 1-0 win from Karl. There's no guarantee that that's going to happen, of course, but that looks to be what's probably going to happen as this game goes on. Now, as we've got a minute between rounds, I should thank the lovely people at Gordian Knot Games who are putting on UK Nationals this year, doing a very fine job of it too. Terry Goodacre, the lovely chap who has sorted out all the tech for this to actually happen. All lovely people indeed. And if you want to kind of get involved, if you want to have a chat, you can tweet me at TheWossy, TheWossy, and I will be checking that intermittently throughout the day. So if you want to get in touch, ask any questions, or make any comments, or just send abusive tweets like Aidan Wardle seems to enjoy doing, then you can do so at the Wossy. Try and keep it slightly nice, and at least don't make it personal. Aidan is, I'm going to be honest, I've given up here. He's just kind of moaning a little bit about everything, and yet clearly still watching the stream. Now, one question I did get from somebody a little while ago was, essentially, am I going to get prizes for commentating? Yes, I'm going to get 2 boxes, 1 for each day worked. And am I going to do box openings on my YouTube channel? I don't get box openings. I don't quite understand them. If people really want me to do a box opening, then tweet me. I can do one on my YouTube channel. But it's people opening packs and telling you what they got. I don't understand box openings. But if people really want me to do one, I shall do my very best impersonation of a box opening. Probably only 1, though. 2 might be overkill. So Rick's going to get to go first this game, which, like I say, a lot of Seismitoad decks want to go second and choose to go second, especially in the Toad Mirror. Don't worry, I'm sure we'll have one of them later. But against a deck like Karl's, you've got to go first, because if Karl hits a Phantump and the turn 1 Wally, he's got the Phantump active, then you're trainer locked for the entire game. Wally allows you to evolve a basic into a stage 1 on the very first turn of the game, or the turn you put it down, and you get trainer lock for as long as he's active. So it really is just horrible. So Rick here needs to make the most of this. What he really wants here is a laser. Put a bit of pressure on that Phantump. Now, obviously, Karl can still play a Wally, and he can then, that counts as evolving, and that means that the poison goes away. But it will just do 30 damage to the Trevenant on turn 1 of the game, which is very, very useful. And, of course, if Karl whiffs the Wally, then Rick can essentially get a cheap and easy KO on the Phantump. Now, Rick's got his 1 turn of not being train locked here, assuming Karl hits a turn 1 Wally. If he doesn't, he's got at least 2 turns of not being trainer locked. Karl, on the other hand, always has a turn not being train locked. That's the advantage a Trevenant player has in this matchup. The Trevenant player always has a turn of not being trainer locked. The Seismitoad player doesn't. If Trevenant goes first and gets a turn 1 Wally, then there is no turn of trainers. Toad does it from an attack. So he's got to get the attack going before he can use it, before he can get the train lock going. Now, Rick, somewhat unfortunately here, has run through 3 Shaymins. He doesn't have a Seismitoad down. This is not a good start for him. He needs to get a Seismitoad, and he needs to get arguably not a DCE. Because, again, we've seen that Karl's playing cards to get rid of DCEs, or we assume he is. I don't know if we've seen many played. And we know that Rick's only playing 4 DCEs. So what we don't want to do, or what Rick doesn't want to do, is end up in a position where he's losing too many DCEs too early, and ends up in a position where he's actually unable to attack. So, yeah. But not even any Seismitoad down, so that really is... It's not a good start from Rick. That was his 1 turn of not being trainer locked. The other thing, of course, is when he's not trainer locked, he gets to put muscle bands on his Seismitoads. Turns a 4-hit KO into a 3-hit KO. And there's no muscle band on there. Not only that, he didn't get the laser, so we didn't get to do any damage to that Phantump. A laser and and there's a laser from Karl there. Had Rick hit a laser and then also been able to get a Seismitoad with a muscle band, he's essentially turning that Trevenant into a 2-hit KO, which is very, very useful. And Karl hits the turn 1 Wally. He's gonna have a Trevenant, and there goes Rick's chances of trainers. And although it wasn't the most exciting play ever, I do hope you paid attention in the first game to the way Karl was managing his bench. One of the problems of Trevenant, alongside the needing 2 energy attachments, is the fact that it can be Lysandra around. And the way Karl managed that, giving Rick the fewest possible opportunities to actually play a Lysandra and break the trainer lock, was just very well done indeed. And I'm quite happy on the stream that we're seeing a lot of players playing... And just doing these little things, which, hopefully will give some of you out there some tips of kind of how to just improve little bits of your play as we go along. So Karl here's got the turn 1. Trevenant, he's got the DCE, and that's not ideal. He wants the psychic energy, because we know that Rick plays Xerosic. Xerosic gets rid of DCE, it doesn't get rid of psychic. Now we know he also plays Team Flare Grunt, but essentially, Team Flare Grunt or Xerosic get rid of the DCE. Only Team Flare Grunt gets rid of the Psychic. But Karl clearly doesn't have a Psychic, and he needs the energy attachment, so he's got a chance it. Now, Rick here is able to get the DCE on the Shaymin. He's got the muscle band on the Shaymin, so he's going to be able to do 50 damage to that Trevenant, which is good. It's a start. He can then 2-hit KO it, or a further 2-hit KO it, using Seismitoad's Quaking Punch. He would be able to, do 30 and then 30, and that would add up to 110 with the 50. It also, crucially, gets rid of the mounting poison damage, which is on that which was on that Shaymin. But Karl is now on his 2nd turn of the game, and he's still not trainer locked, which means he's able to run through his deck much faster. He's going to draw into what he needs much faster. And let's remember, it's a lot to get, but Psychic Energy, Muscle Band, Laser is going to get a 1-hit KO on that active Shaymin. It's going to get him 2 easy prizes. And he's able to play a Muscle Band, and he's able to play a Laser, because he's not under trainer lock. And Rick can keep healing those Shaymins by doing 30 damage. He can't use a muscle band anymore. So he can keep doing 30 damage with the Shaymins and eventually take down that Trevenant. But he's not really getting further ahead. Now, he's got the laser, and that's key. Does he have the psychic energy? Yes, he does, because he plays a Trainer's Mail. That card which just won't go away. He plays a Trainer's Mail, and he draws into a computer search, and nobody wants to computer search for a basic energy. They really don't. But unfortunately, in this situation, if he doesn't have a basic psychic, that's what's going to happen. He's going to computer search for a basic psychic. He's going to get the KO on the Shaymin. He's going to go up by 2 prizes. And not only is he going to go up by 2 prizes, but he's going to leave Rick trainer locked, 2 prizes down, with no Seismitoad out. And that's not a good position to be in. So we're fully expecting Karl to go for a psychic energy there. He grabbed something very quickly. Didn't quite catch what it was. But again, if it's anything but a psychic energy, I would be very surprised. Oh, look, it was a psychic energy. Oh, he still needs the muscle band, though. He's got everything for the combo but the muscle band. And remember, if he whiffs the muscle band, we know Rick's got a DCE in hand. So, and he needed that second Phantom because, you know, it's only going to take 2 hits from Shaymin to take that Trevenant down. So he needed the Phantom down. Essentially, Rick can now hit the Trevenant, and then Karl can attach an energy. Rick can then KO the Trevenant, by which point Rick can attach the second energy. Karl can attach a second energy and be ready to go with his second Trevenant. So it's gonna work out as long as he can keep drawing into his energies. So we are, I think, about 40 minutes into the game now. There's no way Rick's winning the series, but there's still an outside chance he can come up with the win, at least in this particular game, and force a tie. But what I think this game shows really well is the interaction between Trevenant and Seismitoad. Trevenant ain't a good matchup for Seismitoad. It's really not. Except for Seismitoad Crawdaunt. I know there are a few of them running around, and they are very good against Trevenant because you can get rid of their energy much easier using Crawdaunt's ability to discard an energy from the active Pokemon. So it doesn't appear that he got the muscle band, but it also appears like the Shaymin is asleep, and that's a terrible piece of luck on Rick's part. And this game could be over fairly quickly. Though he's having to bench the other Shaymin to try and draw into... Oh, he's actually got nothing to draw into. Now there goes a Xerosic from Rick. We should be expecting that. So there is now a possibility that Rick is going to be able to run Karl out of energy. Karl now, essentially, by the time that Trevenant goes down, he's only going to have had chance to attach 1 energy to the bench Phantom. But that Shaymin is going to die between turns. Because it stayed asleep, Rick wasn't able to attack with it, and what happened was that it had 80 damage going into Rick's turn, and then died of poison at the end of Rick's turn. So there we see a laser, and we don't... Do we need the muscle band? We don't need the muscle band here. Because of the 20 damage, the residual damage that was on the Shaymin, Karl will now be doing 60 damage to the Shaymin, plus 30 for the laser is 90, plus 20 damage, and that Shaymin's dead. Karl is down to 2 prizes, and I really don't see what Rick's going to do here. This is terrible luck for Rick. He's not able to draw into anything, but then again, he's been trainer locked for all bar 1 turn of the game, so it does look fairly inevitable at this stage, and Rick concedes there's nothing he can do, and Karl wins the series 2-0 in fairly convincing fashion. Does this prove that Trevenant is better than Seismitoad? Maybe not, but I would say I would call it a favourable matchup. But then again, not everyone's going to play Trevenant the same way that Karl does, so who knows. So I'm going to leave you for a second. I'm going to put you back into silence, and I'm going to see if either Karl or Rick wants to have a quick chat with us. We didn't have time to put the standings up after the last round because it went to time. I will see if it's possible to do so here. So I'm going to put you in silence for a minute, and we'll be back very shortly. Okay, we are back, and we are joined by both the people from last round. We've got Karl Blake and we've got Rick Cherry. Congratulations, Karl, and sorry, Rick.
Thank you.
So, Karl, tell us about the Trevenant deck. Why Trevenant? Everyone's going over Shaymin with Seismitoad. Why Trevenant?
Trevenant's got quite a good matchup across the board. It hits high as well. Like, most people are playing the deck wrong. They're just attacking with the Shaymin and then bouncing back to Trevenant. If you actually attack with the Trevenant, it's a really good attacker. Like, there's no reason not to attack with it. Start spreading the damage, and it's all round a good deck, I think.
Yeah, I've been preaching that since I saw Scott play it that way in Doncaster. It's so much stronger than you'd think. Do you think it has an inherent advantage over, because obviously you've just picked the Seismitoad deck that round, do you think it has an inherent advantage over Seismitoad all the time?
Only if you go first, then there's like a very, very big advantage. If you just go Wally's turn 1 and then fancy into Trevenant and attach an energy, unless they have a way of getting rid of the energy, like, they're going to die. They're now playing like 4 Trainers Mail, potentially 4 Acrobat, all the random cards, all of which they now just can't play.
And then the hand gets clogged up, so they can't even use the Shaymin to draw
and
cards.
Just sit and attack, and even if they do go just DC hit for 30, you're going to win that exchange anyway, because you just attach another energy. You're hitting 60, you'll go to 60, they'll go to 120, you'll go to 90, you'll knock them out. So the exchange is always there.
I agree entirely. What decks don't you want to face then? Are we going to have any bad matchups for this?
Quite dislike facing Yveltal. Would be quite fun. A baby Yveltal, and I would just sign the slip. I just like, you know what, mate, you've got it, have it. Like
I'm not 100% convinced there's going to be a huge amount of baby Yveltals around.
Oh, that's fine then.
I mean, I haven't seen any.
I've seen one, and I think it's that Welsh guy. I know, I think it's that older Welsh player, but he's the only one I've seen play it so far.
Sounds good. So, Rick, my apologies, especially for Game 2. That was not great fun.
No, it was a bit brutal.
It was a bit brutal. Why did you not use Lysandras in the game?
Well, I would have liked to, but in both games they were both priced.
I had to ask you, told me that. That is absolutely horrible. Why did you go for Seismitoad? I mean, a lot of people are playing it today. Were you worried about the mirror match or a lot of people playing it, or did you just think it was the strongest deck?
I just felt like over the board it was pretty strong. Obviously, I don't want to play Groudon, but apart from that, I think it's pretty even with most of the other decks.
Yeah, I mean, I've found it's a kind of deck where if you flip like 30 to 50%, you beat essentially everything, with the odd outliers of, turn 1 Trevenant or something like that. You just win every game.
Yeah, I didn't want to play Trevenant either, but, these things happen.
What put you off Trevenant?
What, playing it or playing against him?
Playing it.
I don't have the cards, and I couldn't be bothered to find them.
Oh, that's a pretty darn good reason.
I haven't had much time to play, so I was like, I've got this, I can pick up the less bits and just go with this.
Ironic, considering how shiny your deck was.
I know, but I'm a magpie, I like my shiny stuff.
Now, the good news is, brief people I've been talking to about the brutality of the tournament in the 130 people top 8, obviously went out 4-0 and 3-1. You guys are in the driving seat for actually making into that top 8 cut. Going to have good resistance, presumably going to keep going and do quite well. How confident are we both feeling?
Well, I've got topped nationals every year for like the past 5 years. I'm quite confident, to be fair.
I feel pretty good. I mean, the matches are pretty good. I mean, it's a bit of a coin flip at times, but so's the deck, so...
There's a lot of coin flips. How do you feel on Mirror?
I played Mirror before. It's really good, but like one wrong move, and like if they pick something else to Lysandra, it's like, well, if they pick that and they don't kill your Toad and you can pull back, it's kind of easy to get the knockout on theirs.
I didn't want to play Toad Mirror either. That's why I didn't play Toad. I didn't want to sit and play Toad Mirror.
It's going to be brutal. We've avoided Toad Mirror so far. You're actually the second Toad deck we've had in 8 rounds, but I fear as we go on there's going to be Toad Mirrors coming out of the woodwork. All right, well, thank you very much for chatting to us, boys. I very much appreciate that. Good luck for the rest of your rounds. And we will be back shortly with round 5.